hang in there.
I know.
Light can turn around here.
I know. I just have a. I can't take it.
I can't take it
I
anymore.
just it's so hard.
My belly. Oh, my belly.
It's just right there. I'm gonna play dead, but don't act like you don't know what to do.
Let's see if anything happens if I stop.
Look, he put the leg up too. Hello. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, Mr. Sir.
I didn't say
Yes,
it. He said it.
I'm
Deal
sorry. Family, take my people's take two. America's Caddie, along with the first family of caddying, at least in my heart. Y'all know we've known each other for so long. This is Paul Tesori, Michelle Tesori, first family of caddy. I'm starting with the boss.
Let's go. Bring it on. Let's go.
Nobody ever gets to talk about the challenges of being caddy wife and what that entails. Everybody always assumes, well, it's just a big party for the caddies out there traveling, having a good time. And, you know, you guys must party all the time too, right? All you moms just sitting at home making $27 million doing nothing.
Yeah, that's us. That's kind of what it looks like. You got it. Nailed it. Yeah, I mean, a couple things. Our husbands work a lot harder than I think people understand. This is not just going out and carrying a bag and going out drinking every night. It's not that at all. As you know, the job is not that. At least not a job you're going to keep.
Correct.
It's not
Correct.
that. And so I think as wives, we've created, the longer I've been out here with Paul on tour, and out here, I mean at home, while he's out there. And I'm fortunate to be able to go out several times a year. So I've made some really great friends with the Caddy Wives groups and the group, and with some of the trainers and player wives too. That's changed. That whole dynamic has changed over the last several years. We have got the last, I would say, 5 years or so, I have watched that shift of mentality on tour, and it's not just necessarily player wives and caddy wives anymore. In fact, if you say player wives to Dowd, she'll say to you, I don't understand. It's just wives. It's just wives.
Correct.
There's no separation between. We're all out
That's
here.
what a team is.
That's a team. And Dowd's mentality, it reminds me that it's so ingrained in us because some of us just were in that separated state for so long out there that that's just what it was. And I think now everything's changed from the players and their wives and kind of how they approach the game and what that looks like for their families and being away, recognizing it's the same for their caddies away. The commissioner is spectacular, Jay Monahan, and he's recognizing that too. It's tricky. Listen, it's tricky. And one of the hardest things I think that people don't understand, is that in order for you to be able to afford to join your husband on the road, whether you have kids at home and can get someone to sit for them, which is its own challenge, or you don't and you're trying to join your husband, there is an expense associated with that. And unless you are one of the top caddying for one of the top 50 or so players in the world, your husband is out there with no health insurance, so you probably have a job to provide that for your family. And if you don't, whether you do or you do not, you still have to budget going out there. Nobody here is millionaires. Nobody. Not the number one player in the world. Not their caddy. And it just doesn't work that way. And I think the perception is kind of off. So it's challenging. Our husbands love us. We know that. We have an incredibly great group of wives. It's tough. It's tough to be home. You love your kids. You love your spouse. You miss everybody. And you kind of get in a routine, and then you have to adjust your routine when they come home. That's not how we do stuff.
That's what I was gonna say. Probably the biggest challenge is when you're home. Like, you're a working mother, so when you're home, you got a routine. Here's the schedule every single day. Then Johnny Monkey Wrench over here comes home and goes, "Hey, here's what we're gonna do," and you go, "What we? No, we. I got this."
That's not how that goes. That's not how we do that.
I just got called Johnny, Monkey Wrench, and Robert in the last. I just want to throw that out there real quick before we do anything. So you guys keep talking. Me and Ryder, we're doing well right now, so thank you.
Yeah, no. Look, see, the dog is doing exactly what you need to do when you come home. Just be quiet and go along with whatever the boss is saying the routine is. See?
It's a rough life. It's a rough life. Rough life.
What is the hardest part? What's the hardest? Because you've been doing it for a long, long time. So what have you seen, other than the dynamic between player, caddy, family, team? What's been the hardest transition for you?
I think the hardest thing is if you're a biblical family, it's keeping a spiritual connection when your spouse is on the road and away for that long. And I would say the second hardest thing is as your kids grow up and start to recognize that daddy's not actually behind the iPad on FaceTime. He's not back there. He's actually not here. And Isaiah's just getting old enough, I think, to know that dad's not home. So Paul will tell me, I'll say, oh my gosh, Isaiah did the cutest thing this morning. He got out of bed and he ran into our room and ran to your side of the bed yelling your name. And he's like, don't tell me that stuff. It's really hard when your little one starts to know where daddy should be when he's home and he's not there. And that, as a parent, that's tricky.
Yeah, see, that whole awesome thing being out on the road as a caddy sometimes, that heartbreaking part is just that's one where no matter how good the paycheck is, when you're out on the road, you're like, I kind of would be okay being homeless if I could be there for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just finished my 19th season caddy, and then it was so different before kids. It was a lot like people said, not as far as partying. I've never been much on that standpoint, but like as far as, yeah, I slept amazing. I went to see good places. I went to baseball games. I went to football games. I ate good dinners. I stayed at nice places. I didn't miss home. I mean, I would miss my wife, but like she knows what I'm doing out here. She knows I'm providing something for our family and for the community that I couldn't do any other way. And then, enter kids. And, in particular, this little guy, Isaiah. And it was, 2017. Weber and I were out in Napa. And I just broke down and started crying. And I couldn't stop. And, at that time, I'm sorry, my year off, it was 2016. And I was just like, I have to do something different. I have to fix this. I have to fix this. And I came home and I started asking around. I did. I talked to Todd Anderson out at TPC, who's, a world-renowned teacher. I talked to him. I talked to another friend of mine that is a teacher. I talked to another guy who was a GM at the club up at Sawgrass. And I just started asking him questions about what does reality look like for me if I want to get back in the golf business? And reality was is if I wanted to bring home a third of what I currently make, it was going to cost me 60 to 70 to maybe even 80 hours a week to do so. And you start looking down at the quality time you'll have with your family if you do that, and I'll have a lot less quality time with my family doing that than I would on the road. The good point is who I work for, being Webb. He doesn't like to play more than 3 in a row, but there's that one time of the year every year where we just played 8 out of 9. With some huge tournaments, obviously, in there. Right. A major, the playoffs, Ryder Cup, which is like 2 majors all in one. Really stressful. I was only home 6 days in that 63-day stretch. And it was brutal. And her and I, we struggle and all that, but we do remind ourselves that October, November, December, I'm only going to work 2 more weeks. And how many other jobs can you say, I'm going to be home the whole week of Halloween, be home the whole week of Thanksgiving, I'm going to be home the whole week of Christmas, and then for New Year's, why don't we just fly the whole family to Maui and go have fun there? Yeah. So as those tears are coming down and as reality sets in, you just have to remind yourself, okay, this is what it is. And you almost have to change your mind to, I'm going to teach my son, from the very beginning, man was created to work. And we have to find a way to do that without putting too much strain on our wives and on our kids, and at the same time letting them know how much you miss them and need them. But at the same time also teaching the value of the importance of work and what that looks like. It looks different for our family. I think we go through a little more heartbreak. I don't mean family, just us, the family of caddies, and even right. I want to say players, but not really. Most of them, the families travel if they want them to. Right. They're able to afford that little extra section. But love my job. Very fortunate to do it. I have been blessed with some amazing players, and the only negative that I find when we go through everything is it's leaving the family.
You said something, we were talking before, about the support system at the Ryder Cup between all of the wives, caddy wives and player wives, like all of the wives as a group. What's that like, and how important is that out on the PGA Tour?
I think that change in the last several years to really making it wives and recognizing, I think we recognize, particularly those of us who've done this for quite some time and are veterans, out there. That's scary. I told Angie Watson, I think, told me going into the Ryder Cup that we were. She texted me. She's like, "We're the veteran wives." I'm like, "You stop it right now. Stop
I
it.
don't even have gray hair.
Stop it. Are you kidding? I have a 4-year-old. I'm like, you and I have 4-year-olds. We are not veterans. Your oldest is 7. Nobody here is a veteran. So
That's a bad word.
Don't do it. But I think even that is exactly how it goes. Angie and I are good friends and communicate regularly on and off the golf course and about golf and not about golf, about life and about Jesus and about our kids and about parenting and about being a great spouse and what that looks like when you're on the road. We have a group of wives, particularly in the caddy space. And I think what started that, sadly, was the death of Lance Bennett's wife. And I think, and we were close. Like she really went out of her way to befriend people on tour and welcome them on tour. And I think when she was gone, there was a group of us that started texting each other. We initially started texting about who's going to the funeral, who's not going, how are we coordinating, who's on what side of town and in the country, and who's everybody playing, where's everybody playing. I think from that grew a group of wives that recognized we are a very select group of women in the world who understand what it's like. And it is different from player wives. Our husbands don't have guaranteed income. They don't have health insurance. Most do not have sponsorships. So your husband is going out, working his can off. He's carrying a 50-pound bag around a golf course, 60, 70 miles in a week. He is exhausted. And then we're expected to have him come home and participate right away, and he's got to recover. There's like these are real things. Nobody understands that except wives who are doing it day in and day out. And
that's the other one.
Kids.
Yeah.
So you can't, people are like, well, just bring Isaiah. Okay, a couple things. I have 5,000 things about that. Let me start with, he lives here. Raising a child in a hotel room is not how Paul and I envision our lives with our children.
I tried that myself.
I recognize that there are times when we travel, and that is great, and we try to make it the best experience possible. Airbnb has made that a little bit more manageable as Isaiah's gotten older. When he was a baby, hotel is fine. But you can only stay inside the Hampton Inn room for so long before your kid's going to rip stuff off the wall. And we have a great kid.
Strong, too. Tearing stuff all up if he wants to.
He's not afraid. But I think discussions have begun. When Jay Monahan stepped into that position on tour, one of the very first things he did was reach out to Paul and another caddy on tour, Michael Greller, and they sat down, the three of them, and talked about what can the tour do to support our caddies. And Paul and Michael, I don't know, until you have a kid, I don't think you get it. And then they had a child. And I think you go, wait a second, my wife can't come every week anymore? No, because where are you going to put your kid? Can't bring him to the golf course when he's old enough to walk around and go where he wants to go, and you're trying to yank him off the ropes, and you can't put him in a stroller for 4 hours.
What do you mean I can't run right out to Daddy whenever I want to?
Yelling his name in the middle of golf swings. So these
dads, we're not very good at that. Come on, buddy. Come on out. Yeah,
we don't see you enough so Daddy doesn't say no.
We're in the middle of golf tournament right now.
I mean, even this year at TPC, and we live here, Isaiah did not come out on Sunday. He didn't come out at all during the week. He, I think, came out for a tiny bit during a practice round, and then to our All-Star Kids Clinic that our foundation runs that week. But he came out on Sunday, and I had to sneak him in or call in favors. I thankfully have made lots of friends on every side of the golf world. So there were folks that work at TPC who knew who I was, that I've known for years. There are folks like you that were back there in the media area. And I am not bringing Isaiah to the 18th green until we are in the 18th fairway or in the water. I mean, we were in the water, but it was fine. And I did not bring Isaiah out until then.
At least Isaiah wasn't in the water.
He was not in the water. But that, Angie Watson and I have talked about on a regular basis. When Webb asked Isaiah to caddy this year in the par 3 at the Masters, he is the only player that has ever, to my knowledge, invited their caddy's child to participate in the par 3. It was, when Dowd asked, I was like, that's sweet. No, please, you don't have to do that. And she's like, no, I'm serious. When we got to Paul and I are like, no, I don't think they're kidding. we knew we were playing with Bubba and Angie, and Angie and Bubba have a Spitfire about the same age as Isaiah. And Angie and I talked about who was going to be responsible for chasing these two. Who's chasing Dakota and who's chasing Isaiah into the ponds at Augusta, and they're never going to let us back. They're never going to let us back there.
That is the one place where you don't ask forgiveness.
No, you can't go into the water, and Isaiah does not care, and I know Dakota doesn't care. So
That's
those
probably
are
why they won't let me have a jumpsuit either.
That's probably true. That's probably true. So those are all real things, and I think there is a misconception that this is some glamorous life. Here's what it is. It is incredibly fulfilling financially for those players and caddies who are at the top of their game when they are. That can change at any time. Golf is a funny, funny game, and it can change at any time. It is harder, of course, when it's a financial struggle, because then you have to play more golf, which means dad's gone more. Or female spouse, Fanny, we love her. Shout out, Fanny, we love you. But I don't think there are any wives out there anymore. Maybe one or two still on the bag. No. I know we sent Adam Shank's fiance sometimes caddies, and Courtney's a riot, and she used to caddy for him on the web, and I think she's done maybe one PGA Tour event. But there are some wives that are out there, and I know Patrick Reed's wife was out there for a bit. So for the most part, it's men that are out there on tour, and when daddy or husband is gone that often, there are some real challenges to that are hard for other people to understand. It's the same for you, though. You're gone from your wife. You're gone from your boys. Your wife has a business at home. Your boys are growing up. They're busy. Major's 11. He's got stuff going on, and daddy's missing that stuff. And Bray's, as they get older, I think it becomes harder. And your wife recognizes that it's different. You can only explain it away. But you measure, just like Paul said, you measure the pros and cons. And when he is home for 3 months during the winter, we get to do stuff as a family that we couldn't otherwise do. But you can't just grab your kid and go out on the road for 2 or 3 weeks. He has no place to go during the day. Your children have no place to go out there. And that makes those decisions more challenging, particularly as your kids get a little bit older.
And it is tough. I think it's easier for the kids as they get older and harder for us, because we're the ones that realize what we're missing. And they kind of go, okay, this is just how life is. But we are old enough to look back in hindsight and kind of be like, I can't believe that I'm missing out on this. But then seeing both sides of it is fantastic too.